Good afternoon, students. Today we are going to discuss the next topic of the respiratory system. That is the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which is occurring through the respiratory membrane. Now, to know how the diffusion of gases is occurring, we must have an idea regarding what are the principles of gas exchange. So, we are going to discuss this particular topic in two heads. First, we are going to discuss the principles of gas exchange, and then we are going to discuss the diffusion in detail. So what exactly is the process of diffusion? If you see, only concentrate on the diffusion. Simple diffusion means the random motion of molecules in all the directions which is continuously occurring inside our body. So every molecule will be moving randomly in all directions. Now as we are concerned with the respiratory system, here we are going to discuss with the molecule movement which is occurring through the respiratory membrane and the adjacent tubes. So there is a continuous molecular movement across the respiratory membrane. And the major movement which occurs is oxygen movement and the carbon dioxide movement. The diffusion of oxygen is occurring from the alveoli to the pulmonary fluid, whereas the diffusion of carbon dioxide is occurring from the blood into the alveoli. So this is the major movement which is occurring across the respiratory membrane, and this is by way of diffusion. Now to understand how this particular diffusion occurs, we must understand some physical principles. So what are the principles which are followed by gases? Whenever any diffusion has to occur, there must there are three important factors which must be taken into consideration. The first is there must be a source of energy. Second is there must be a constant temperature. And the third thing which you have to keep in mind is that net diffusion of any gas is always occurring in one direction only. So these are the three important factors. So the diffusion occurs in only one direction of any particular gas. There must be a constant temperature and there must be a energy. Now this particular energy is provided by the random continuous motion of the molecules. So this is how the movement is occurring. It is all the molecules are continuously moving. Some of the molecules, say for example, this is a particular gas. This will move in this direction, and this is the other gas which will be moving in this direction. So at one time there is a direction which is given to the diffusion, and this diffusion is dependent on temperature and the energy which is provided by the kinetic motion. Now remember that wherever the gas molecules are moving in the body, inside the body, they are always dissolved in the water. So these gas molecules has to travel in a dissolved state. So whatever movement which it has to be there, it should be in a dissolved manner. So say for example, this is again the same figure which is explaining the process of diffusion. So what we have is a membrane is there, and one gas is there, the other gas is there, and both of these gases has to cross this particular membrane, and there is a continuous movement which is occurring. So this is the same figure again explaining the same process. So you have a membrane, and then on one side a gas is there, gas 1, the other side gas 2 is there. And there is again the movement of gases which is occurring. So this is the principle of diffusion. So continuous random motion which is dependent on the energy and the temperature is occurring inside our body, and the gas molecules are in dissolved state. Now, as in the respiratory membrane or in the respiratory system inside our body, the pressure of the gas is not a sole pressure. So there is always a mixture of gases. So what we have is oxygen, you have nitrogen and carbon dioxide. So there is a mixture of these three gases. So for each of the gas, there will be a partial pressure for individual gases. So what is this partial pressure? It is the pressure of a single type of a gas in the mixture of gases. and this pressure is directly proportional to the concentration of that particular gas molecule. So, whenever we are discussing the pressures, it is not the whole pressure, it is the partial pressure of that particular gas. So, whatever figures in the books are also given, they will be the partial pressure of that particular gas. Now, these gas molecules, they follow major two laws. One is that if you are adding all the partial pressures of the gases which are present in that particular system, the total of that will be 760 millimeters of atmosphere. Okay, so this is 1 atmospheric pressure or 760 millimeters of mercury pressure. So if we are going to add all the pressures of all three gases, the value will be always 760 millimeters of mercury. So this is the first law which is followed by the gases. The second law is Henry's law, that the gas molecule has to dissolve in the liquid, and this amount or the dissolving capacity depends on two factors. The first is solubility itself, the solubility of that particular gas in the liquid. Now it is said that CO2 is 20 times more soluble in water than oxygen, and very little amount of nitrogen will dissolve in the water. So this is the first important factor which is affecting the dissolving capacity of that particular gas. The second important factor is the temperature. If the temperature of that particular liquid is rising, the solubility of that gas will decrease. So these two things which you have to remember. So whenever these changes will occur, this will definitely going to affect the amount of gas which is dissolved in the liquid. So amount of pressure which is created by that gas will be affected, and if the pressure created is affected, the gradient for the movement of the gases again will be affected. So these are the things which are followed by the physical properties of the gases. So, keeping in all these minds, if you measure the partial pressures of oxygen and carbon dioxide, these are the various values which are obtained at atmospheric air and at various sites in the body. So what we have is oxygen pressure, and the second one is carbon dioxide pressure. Of course, it is a partial pressure. Now in the atmospheric air, the oxygen partial pressure is 160. In the alveoli, it decreases to 100, that is, it is 100. Then in the veins and systemic arteries, again it will be 100. And when in the cell, if you are measuring, it will be equal to or less than 40 millimeters. Okay, so see, here there is a gradient of 60. So from the alveoli, the pressure is 100 in the alveoli and the atmospheric air. So the gradient pressure is 60. Again from the arteries to the tissue, this pressure difference is around 60, and due to these pressure gradient, the oxygen will be moving from atmosphere to the alveoli, and from the alveoli it reaches the cells. So this is how the pressure which is created, the partial pressure which is created, helps in the diffusion of gases. Now you consider the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. At the cell level, this is more than or equal to 46 millimeters of mercury pressure. If in the arteries and the veins, or when it reaches the alveoli, it is around 40. So from the tissue, there is a pressure gradient which is created around 6 millimeter, and here when it reaches the alveoli it is around 40, and in the atmosphere the pressure is zero point 0.3 millimeters. So there is a large pressure gradient, and due to these pressure gradient, the carbon dioxide will be moving from the cell to the alveoli and then to the atmosphere. So this is how the pressure gradient which is created helps in the movement of the gas. The second table also explains the partial pressure of respiratory gases as they enter and leave the lungs. So we'll consider only here the oxygen. See here, what we have is nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and along with that the liquid which is water. And if you consider the total pressure, it is always 760. Okay. Now, if we are considering this oxygen in the atmosphere, the pressure is 159. When it is humidified, it decreases to 149. And in the alveoli, it is 104. And in the expired air, it is 120. So this is how the partial pressure of oxygen is changing. And these pressure gradients which are created will help in the movement of the gases. So this is again the same thing which is going to explain the movement and the pressure which is generated by that particular gas. So if we are having only oxygen, then the pressure generated is around 159. If we have only nitrogen, the pressure generated is around 593. And if we are mixing oxygen and nitrogen and we have both of these gases, then the total will be around 752, which is near to the atmospheric pressure, that is 760 millimeters of mercury. Now, the gas molecule, the movement due to the pressure gradient tries to equilibrate with itself. Okay, so see the example of this. Here you have the air pressure. Partial pressure of oxygen here is 100, and in the water it is 0. So there is a interface here, and the molecules from higher pressure will try to move in this lower pressure, and finally at some point it will reach the equilibration. So both the pressures will be equal and the motion or the movement of the molecules will be stopped. So this is known as equilibration pressure, and the moment to require the equilibration to occur is here. It is roughly told. Okay, so these many molecules are required to equilibrate the movement. This is applied for carbon dioxide, the equilibration. Now here this is known as equilibration or 100% oxygen saturation. Here the movement of on the horizontal axis, it is the time of the blood in the pulmonary capillaries there. So it starts from 0, and the end of the capillary, when it reaches at the end of the capillary, it is 0.75 seconds. So the total time is 0.75 seconds. So it gets around this much time. And on the vertical axis, you have the partial pressure of oxygen, which is starting from 0 here, and it is highest point is 150. Now at the tissue level, we have seen that the partial pressure of oxygen is around 40 millimeters. So at the tissue level, here it is 40 millimeters, and when the blood, the capillaries and the blood passing through it is near to, blood is flowing here, and the oxygen will be added to it, and as the oxygen is added, the partial pressure of oxygen goes on increasing. Now if you see this 100% 100 pressure, partial pressure of oxygen will be reached at this point, and the time required to achieve this particular pressure is only 0.25 seconds. So this much time is required to cause the pressure gradient to change from 40 to 100. Okay, and this is what is required by the body. So this is the extra time which is there, which is known as buffer time for the blood to get oxygenated, and this is the extra time. So when if you have any type of disorders, if you have decrease in the circulation, still the blood can contain the 100 millimeters partial pressure of oxygen. So this is the buffer time. Now this alveolar air always is not by a single breath it is changed. It takes slowly replaced by the atmosphere air, and it requires multiple breaths to exchange the alveolar gas. Why? Because this slow replacement will prevent the sudden changes which are occurring in the concentration of the blood. And these concentrations of both the gases, they are dependent on two factors. First is what is the amount of alveolar ventilation, and the second is what are the rates of absorption or excretion of these gases. So these two factors will affect the concentration, will affect the partialization, and depending on that, the alveolar air is replaced, but it is slowly replaced. So this is how it is replaced. So this is the first breath. This is generated. Okay. So the air is collected inside the alveoli. This is the first breath, and now see the replacement. At the end of the 16th breath, the exchange has completed. Now again, this will occur this phase, and this cycle goes on. This is how the exchange of alveolar air is continuously going on. So after knowing these physical principle of gases, we will move to the diffusion of gases, which is occurring through the respiratory membrane itself. So this is the second part of your session. That is how the diffusion of gases which occurs in the respiratory membrane. Now, how it occurs, first we will see what is exactly the respiratory unit. The respiratory unit is respiratory bronchiole, the alveolar duct, and the alveoli. So these three together, they are going to form the respiratory unit. And remember, in the first lecture only, I have told you that the alveoli and the blood capillaries are very close proximity to each other, and the membranes of the alveoli are very thin. Okay, so what we have is this particular type of structure. So you have the respiratory bronchiole. This is the respiratory bronchiole. Then these are the ducts, and these are the alveoli, sacs actually, and this is known as respiratory unit. So these are all actually having the gas exchange itself. As we have seen that some of the airways will be only conducting, and some of the part of the respiratory system will be actual helping in the diffusion. Now there are around 300 millions of alveoli, and each alveolus is around 0.2 millimeters in diameter. So this is respiratory unit. Now if we are thinking that there is a diffusion across the respiratory membrane, how it is formed? This respiratory membrane is composed of 6 layers. The first layer is a layer of fluid which is having the surfactant. Then there is the alveolar epithelium. The third layer is the basement membrane of the epithelium. Then comes the space which is there between the alveoli and the capillary. So that is an interstitial space. The fifth layer is the basement membrane of the capillary, and the last layer to cross is the capillary endothelial membrane. So the respiratory membrane, which is also known as pulmonary membrane, is having these 6 layers. These are the common questions which are asked in the examination. So this is how it is formed. So you have 6 layers. The first 3 part is alveolar part, then last 2 part is capillary part, and in between that you have a space which is interstitial space. So this is how it is formed. This is how the figure actually it is looking like. So you can see there is a surfactant fluid lining, then you have the alveolar epithelium, and so this will be your alveolar part and this will be your capillary part. So this is alveolar epithelium, and inside there is a fluid lining, and this is a capillary basement membrane and capillary endothelium, and in between these two you have the interstitial space. So this is how the respiratory membrane is formed, and the gas has to cross this particular membrane. So we have seen the physical principle what they are following, and now we are concentrating on the structure of the membrane through which the diffusion has to occur. So remember there is a 6 layer, and this is how the 6 layers are arranged. See, this is the figure. So you have the capillary on this side which is having the RBC. This RBC is important in holding the gases. So from capillary This is the alveoli, which is having the air here, and in between these, you have the interstitial space. So the oxygen from the alveoli has to cross first the alveolar membrane, then the space, and then the capillary. Then it reaches the blood itself. Okay, and if the carbon dioxide has to cross, it has to travel in this opposite direction. First it has to cross the capillary path, then the interstitial space, and then it has to cross the alveolar part. So this is how the diffusion is occurring. Now, despite the large number of layers, that there are 6 layers, but the overall thickness is very small. So it is around zero point 0.2 millimeters, micrometer, sorry. So it is around zero point 0.2 micrometer, and on an average it may be at some point 0.6 micrometer. So it is very thin layer, even if it is having 6 layers. The average diameter, if you are seeing of the pulmonary capillaries, okay, so here you will be having the pulmonary capillaries, and the diameters of this, it is said to be 5 micrometers. Okay, so inside the capillaries which are very close to the alveoli, they are very small. The diameter of that is around 5 micrometers, and if you remember the diameter of the red blood cell, it is around 7.2 micrometers. So that means they have to squeeze literally. Okay, and due to this particular position, they are very close to the membrane, and this actually touches the capillary wall, so it does not have to cross the plasma layer. Otherwise, it has to cross the plasma layer also, and it can affect the diffusion. And due to this factor, that 5 micrometer size and the size of RBC much bigger. Due to that, the increase in the rapidity of diffusion occurs. Okay, so this is the anatomical arrangement which gives the faster diffusion of gases. Now, what are the so accepted that we have 6 layers and the gas has to travel in both the direction. It has to cross the 6 layers. So, what will be the factors which are affecting the rate of gas diffusion? Again, these questions are very commonly asked in the examination. Commonly asked this particular topic as a long answer question, a topic which is also favorite of the short answer question and the Viva question. So the factors which are affecting the rate of gas diffusion. The first is thickness of the membrane. Second is the surface area of the membrane. The third is diffusion coefficient of the gas. And the fourth is partial pressure difference of the gas which is on the two sides of the membrane. So these are the 4 important factors which are going to affect the gas diffusion. So one by one we are going to see these factors. The first, the thickness. Now, what will be the relation? It is inversely proportional. More thick the membrane, less will be the diffusion. Thin is the membrane, more will be the diffusion. So, any cases where the thickness of the membrane is increased, that does affect the diffusion rate, and the rate of diffusion will be decreased. Now, in many of the disorders, the thickness can increase up to 3 to 6 millimeters, and these are the disorders where you get a fibrosis of lungs, which can increase the thickness of the membrane, or suppose there is a fluid in the interstitial space, so that also increases the thickness. Suppose the alveoli are increased due to pulmonary edema, or there is some type of infection that increases the permeability of the capillary membrane, and so there will be accumulation of fluid inside the interstitial space, and if you are increasing that interstitial space, it increases the thickness of the membrane, and thus it decreases the infection. So this is the first factor. The second factor is the surface area. All of us know that larger the surface area, more will be the diffusion. So any factor which is causing less surface area will decrease the diffusion process. The most common condition where the surface area is decreased is the disease which is known as emphysema. What happens in emphysema is that the alveolar membrane will be attaching itself and dissolving. So there will be a one big alveoli, and due to that the surface area for diffusion will be less. In some smokers or in cancer patients, there will be again the alveoli. They produce in genetically abnormality also. They are going to produce a substance which is known as elastase, which is degraded, which is causing the degradation of the alveolar wall. So in smokers also there is degradation of alveolar wall. In cancer patients also there is a degradation of wall, and in some genetic abnormalities. So due to this loss of alveolar wall, there is less surface area which is available, and this decreased total surface area leads to decrease in the gas exchange. The third important factor is diffusion coefficient. This diffusion coefficient is determined by solubility of the gas and the molecular weight, the square root of the molecular weight. So if the molecular weight of the gas is more, the density also will be more and the rate of diffusion is less. So as the weight is increasing, the diffusion will be less. If the molecular weight is low, the diffusion will be faster. Now, if you consider only the molecular weight, the oxygen is supposed to be having low molecular weight than the carbon dioxide, and then theoretically, depending on the molecular weight, the oxygen can cross the respiratory membrane much faster than the carbon dioxide. But this is not the only one factor. It is also having the consideration of solubility, and we all have considered already that the solubility, which is much more, 20 times more of the carbon dioxide. So the diffusion is more of the carbon dioxide, not of the oxygen. The fourth factor is the partial pressure difference of the gas. We have already discussed. The partial pressure difference across the membrane is causing the movement. So whatever total number of molecules are there, they will create a pressure, and that pressure will generate the pressure gradient and cause the diffusion of gases, which is known as net tendency or net movement of gas. Say for example, this alveoli, this is capillary, and the oxygen partial pressure is more in the alveoli and less in the capillary. So there is a net movement in this direction. Whereas if you consider the carbon dioxide, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more in pulmonary capillaries as compared to alveoli. So the net diffusion is occurring in this direction for the carbon dioxide. This is how the partial pressure is helping in the movement of gases. Now that is all regarding how the diffusion is occurring. Now what we did the diffusing capacity of the respiratory membrane. The diffusing capacity is the volume of a gas that will diffuse to the membrane each minute for a partial pressure difference of 1 millimeter. Okay, so whenever there is a 1 millimeter mercury change, how much amount of gas volume is changing? That is the diffusing capacity. Now let us see what is there for oxygen. In the average young man, the diffusing capacity for oxygen under resting condition is around 21 milliliters per minute per milliliters of mercury. Okay, so that means the pressure difference across is 11 millimeters. And if you multiply this by 21, this comes around to 30 milliliters of oxygen. So each minute, around 230 milliliters of oxygen is diffused across the respiratory membrane. And this is what is required by the body at a resting state. Okay. Now this can increase whenever increased requirement is there. Say for example you are doing exercise. Now here the requirement is can increase up to 65 ml. So at resting state it was 25 ml. So in the exercise there is an increased oxygen diffusion which can which can increase up to 65. So 65 into 11 will be around 715 ml will be the oxygen which is made available. So there is a threefold increase. How it can be increased? Either the pulmonary blood flow can be increased or the ventilation can be increased. And both of these will increase the oxygen diffusion capacity. The pulmonary blood flow is increased either by reopening the dormant pulmonary capillaries. So those pulmonary capillaries which were closed, they were not used, they will be reopened, or the pre-existing capillaries can be dilated. So by these two mechanisms, the blood flow can be increased. Then we can increase the ventilation, and the requirement of oxygen will be matching the ventilation perfusion ratio, which is known as PQ ratio. The carbon dioxide actually is 20 times more soluble or more diffusible than the oxygen. So it is crossing the respiratory membrane so rapidly that it is not possible to measure the diffusing capacity for carbon dioxide. So it is said to be 20 times more than oxygen. So if we are calculating like that, then in resting condition, it is around 400 to 450 ml per minute, which can be increased during exercise to 1200 to 1300 milliliters per minute per milliliters of change. So this is the diffusing capacity for carbon dioxide. So this is the figure which explains that this is for oxygen. Red is for resting condition, which can be threefold increased during exercise. And if you compare the oxygen diffusing capacity with the carbon dioxide, you can see that it is 20 times more. Okay, so this is in the resting condition, and this is during exercise. This is for carbon monoxide. So this is how the diffusion of gases is occurring. And after knowing the process of diffusion, up till now what we have discussed is how the air, with the help of the muscles, with the help of rib cage, and the elasticity, the air has been moved inside. It has reached to alveoli. Now in this particular session, what we have seen is from the alveoli, it has been transferred to blood. And that is the second phase, which is diffusion. So this figure is going to explain you this. Red is oxygenated blood and blue is the deoxygenated blood. So you have the alveoli here. Okay. Now this alveoli is due to the pressure gradient causing the movement of oxygen from the alveoli to the pulmonary capillaries. Now these pulmonary capillaries, through the pulmonary veins, the blood will reach to the heart, and from the heart it's via the aorta, it goes to the systemic arteries. Okay, and these systemic arteries will provide this oxygenated blood to the tissues. So these will be the systemic capillaries, and these systemic capillaries are near to the tissue. So it will reach up to the systemic capillaries, and the oxygen is delivered. At the end product of the metabolism of the tissue is carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide will be uptaken, and then via the systemic veins it reaches the heart, and from the heart the deoxygenated blood reaches the lungs, where it again carbon dioxide is expired out and the blood gets oxygenated. And this is the circulation which is occurring. This is how diffusion helps in the process of oxygenation of blood. Okay, so that is all regarding the today's topic. If you have any doubt, you can WhatsApp me. Thank you.